right, I'd like to call the the December 13th, 2011 meeting of the Newport Beach City Council. May we have roll call, please?
The record will reflect that Councilmember Rosansky is currently absent.
All right. We do not have a study session today, so we will be adjourning to closed session. But first, I'd like to know if there are any members of the public that would like to make a comment about the closed session agenda or any other item. Seeing none, we are adjourned to closed session.
Let me know if I missed it. Mike's on. Mike's are on. Yes, sir.
I'd like to call to order the December 13th, 2011 meeting of the Newport Beach City Council. May we have roll call, please?
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Do we have a closed session report?
We do not have a closed session report. However, we're unable to complete our business on closed session, so we'll be looking to re-adjourn at the end of this meeting to closed session.
Okay. Would you all please now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Rosansky, and stay standing for the invocation led by Reverend Richard Kenwisher of the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our gracious and heavenly Father, we often call this the most wonderful time of the year. The lights do seem to shine brighter at the holidays. The joy is more contagious, the generosity more heartfelt, the kindness more tangible. And yet simultaneously, O God, this is often the most difficult time of year. Here is where we feel our disappointments the most. There's the relationship that failed to live up to expectation. There's the job that never materialized. There's the pregnancy test that never turns out to be positive. There's the empty chair at the breakfast table that provokes the heavy weight of sadness. All of our decorating and all of our celebrating at this time of year point to a deep longing within us for something special to be born. Not some sort of fanciful, wishful thinking, but a living hope. And so above all, we want to know that you are real, that we are not alone, and that you are near to us. Would it be that heavenly royalty would approach our own vulnerability? Would it be that divinity would come near to our own journey? And so we pray tonight for those the world often calls worthless, for those who can't hold a job, for older people who are bedridden and confused. We pray for addicts and for those who are ill with cancer or dementia. We pray tonight for people we forget, for garbage collectors, for cleaning crews, for friends who have moved away. We pray for people that we take for granted, for police officers and firefighters and soldiers. Especially send down your blessings upon this community of leaders and citizens gathering on this night. We pray for wisdom and for discernment for all decisions that need to be made for the sake of developing a flourishing community. And so may your light shine in the darkness once again. May there be good news of great joy for all people. May your resolve far exceed our reluctance, your faithfulness far outweigh our fickleness, and your mercy outlast our mistakes. May we discover, even in this moment, that there's no place apart from your love. There's no place on earth that cannot be reached with your faithfulness. That there's no place beyond your grace. That no overcrowding, no time, no religion, no government, no injustice, not even death can stop your creative and redemptive power. It is in this assurance that makes this time of year pregnant with such possibility. So come to us, we ask. Abide with us, we pray. And while we may come from differing traditions, and while we may in this room hold a variety of convictions, while our hearts and even our words may diverge from one another, as I lead this prayer tonight, I offer it in the only way that I know how. In the humble, simple name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Okay, the next order of business is a presentation. We have with us this evening Kate Klimow, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Orange County Business Council, and she's here to make a presentation regarding the Business Council's inaugural Turning Red Tape into Red Carpet Awards program, which I presume has something to do with some things we've done here in Newport Beach.
Yes. So,
Thank you,
Mayor
Kate.
Henn and council members, it's a pleasure to be here this evening, and not just because I'm first on the agenda. OCBC developed the Turning Red Tape into Red Carpet Awards to recognize the good work being done by local governments in tough times to help businesses grow, hire, and prosper. We so often hear in the news the things that government does wrong, so we wanted to acknowledge the things that government does right. In Orange County, with the lowest unemployment rate in any metropolitan area in California, local governments are helping cut through bureaucratic red tape, reduce the cost of doing business, and encourage economic recovery. We presented a total of 10 awards in 6 categories and received 35 nominations from cities, school districts, and county agencies. And the diversity of entries speaks to the innovation and creativity on display throughout Orange County. The nominations were reviewed by an independent committee of business and community leaders, and they found the one thing that all the winning entries had was that they all used measurable results to show that the program was doing what it was developed to do. So in the category of business retention and expansion, this award honors economic development initiatives that focus on retaining and growing existing businesses in the county. And it is with great pleasure that we recognize the City of Newport Beach for your community development reorganization. And this is good stuff, so I'm going to read it. With the goal of providing excellent customer service, the City of Newport Beach initiated a significant transformation project to improve its development-related services for local businesses by combining previously distinct city departments and divisions into a unified community development department. An excellent example of streamlining government services, using new technology, and changing the city's culture of customer service. Because of this program, 80% of permit applications are reviewed at the front counter on the day they're filed. In a previous career, I've worked for an engineering firm and a home builder, so I truly appreciate and value the changes that have happened here in the city, and I can sum it up in one word, and that's brilliant. So on behalf of Orange County's business community, thank you. Thank you for the good work that you're doing and for setting a great example for other cities in the county. And with that,
Thank you, Kate. I'll be down in just a second. Maybe we'll take a picture.
terrific.
I did want to make a comment, though, before I do that. This was an extraordinary accomplishment by our staff to change both culture and practice in such a short period of time with the people that were in place fundamentally when we started that process. And so it's a tremendous achievement that doesn't happen all that often. And I want to go back a little bit farther than that. When we send out surveys to our citizens to ask them, how are we doing here in Newport Beach? Those surveys are important. That's this city council's report card. On our report card a few years back, we didn't get such good grades on building and planning department and customer service. And with that feedback, we made changes. Staff made changes. We fixed the problem you told us about, you, our citizens. So next time you get one of those surveys, or you get a phone call for one of those surveys, listen up, give us the feedback, we act on it. And I am very proud of our staff that we, in fact, did that this time. Can we take a picture?
Please.
If anyone else would care to make a comment, please do.
And maybe Kim should come up too, and Dana maybe to get in that picture.
Well, while the mayor is going down for the picture, I want to say how very proud I am of staff too, because this is one of the things that did come out of our first citizen satisfaction survey. And staff really focused on reorganizing the department and changing the value system. And to see it recognized this way is very, very gratifying.
Well, that puts me in the holiday spirit. Okay, let's go on to the agenda then. I guess the next thing is notice to the public. Leilani?
The city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the council. Speakers must limit comments to 5 minutes on agenda items. The council has the discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or set them in the silent mode. Now is the time for council announcements or matters which council members would like placed on a future agenda for discussion, action, or report.
Very good, thank you. Councilmember Daigle.
Yes, congratulations to the Corona Del Mar High School Sea Kings football team. On Friday night, they prevailed and beat Beckman, who was a really fast and big team. So CDM won 14-13. It was a huge victory. First championship since 1989. And there were a lot of 1989 alumni in the crowd. So congratulations. I'm sure the school will be celebrating over the months ahead.
Thank you. Councilmember Curry.
Just to say that, like with many of my other council colleagues, I was privileged to attend the Speak Up Newport Christmas party. That organization does a great job for the city in hosting events every month, focusing on community issues, and we wish them another great and happy 2012.
Councilmember Selich.
2 items, Mayor. The first one is I attended the opening of the new Balboa Island Museum and Historical Society. It's at 331 Marine Avenue, and it was well attended. There was a lot of folks out traveling around Balboa Island for the Christmas season. It's a group that's dedicated to preserving the history and traditions of Balboa Island. Looking forward to them having a very successful operation at their new location. They're going to be open for winter hours on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 to 2. So I would encourage everyone that has an interest in Balboa Island history to get over and take a look and see what those folks have done. Second item is I'd like to have staff bring back to council for initiation of a change to the zoning code. There's a problem that's been developing on Balboa Island where we have the homes that have to be raised to a higher elevation because of the FEMA regulations, that we create situations where the home next to it that may not be raised is faced with having a 9-foot fence next door to them. And unfortunately, the way we measure our zoning code for fence heights, we measure it from the height of the lot that it's being built on. And I'd like to see it be measured from the height of the lower lot, and then such time as all the lots are brought to an equal height, then we can go back to the normal size. So I'd like to see that be brought back to the council as soon as possible. We had a situation out on the island right now that it's created, I think it's an undesirable situation, but it's all legal within the parameters of our zoning code, so there's nothing we can do about it, but we should try and see if we can get this done sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hill.
Nothing.
And Councilmember Rosansky.
Nothing, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Nothing.
I have a few announcements. I was privileged to attend the 2011 Friend of the Conservancy Award ceremony given to Gene Watt. It was awarded by the Bolsa Chica Conservancy. We attended a luncheon. Councilmember Curry and Councilmember Daigle were also there in honor of Gene and 3 other recipients of awards. Gene has been a tireless worker for environmental improvements in Newport Beach and our entire region, and that award was certainly well-deserved. We're proud that one of Newport's own would have gotten this award. And then on Saturday, I also attended the grand opening of Casey's Cupcakes, a new business coming into Fashion Island. Casey is a young lady, actually, and she really makes great cupcakes. Casey's Cupcakes was a recent winner of the Food Network Cupcake Wars, and so she's got some kudos on her side here as she opens her store. I had some of those cupcakes. They're great. We are very glad to welcome a new business here in Newport Beach, a new luminary in our culinary star network. So with that, we wish them well and encourage everybody to get over there and give them a try. I wanted to make sure everyone continues to be aware the boat parade occurs beginning tomorrow and through Sunday. This is the 103rd, 2nd, something like that, boat parade here in Newport Beach. It's a great event, well worth everyone coming to attend and seeing. There will be fireworks on Sunday evening off the Balboa Pier at 9 p.m. We do have a couple of meetings still yet on the agenda. We have a neighborhood revitalization meeting this Thursday, December the 15th at 4 p.m. in the council chambers. We will be reviewing at that meeting what we think is the final recommended Lido Village design guidelines, and I believe, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, the final recommended West Newport landscape guidelines,
Hopefully.
as well as the final recommended Santa Ana Heights landscaping guidelines. This is bringing to fruition the work of 3 citizens advisory panels for recommendation to council for action following that meeting. And then the Balboa Village Citizens Advisory Panel, this is the one that's dealing with the revisioning of Balboa Village. We'll have a combined meeting with the Neighborhood Revitalization Committee on Tuesday, December the 20th at 4 p.m. at the Nautical Museum, where we'll be hearing a presentation by our outside consultants on economic development issues for the village, as well as initiate the discussion of parking solutions, that is, parking governance and management. So that'll be an important meeting. We encourage all the public to attend that as well. Finally, I'd like to wish everyone the very happiest of holidays and a great new year, on the presumption that we will not be having a council meeting before the end of the year, and hope everyone really has an opportunity to enjoy these holidays. With that, we will move on the agenda. And the next item that we have is the consent calendar.
All matters listed under consent calendar, items 1 through 7, are considered by the council to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. The council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the council votes on the motion unless members of the council, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Members of the public who wish to discuss a consent calendar item should come forward to the lectern upon invitation by the mayor and state their name and item number. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium.
Thank you. Councilmember Hill, did you wish to pull anything?
Nothing, thank you.
And Councilmember Rosansky?
Nothing, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
I did have a question on number 5. Do we usually, it seems like from the report that we usually do this annually. We make an annual contract, and this year we're going for 3 years. Is that a change, or?
Mayor Henn asked that same question, and Rob Williams would be here if you want to discuss that, to tell about why we did it this way and what we've done in the past. And because off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to your question.
Okay, well then I'll pull number 5.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Daigle?
None to pull. Did want to record a no vote on number 4, please.
Okay. Councilmember Curry? No items. Councilmember Selich?
No items.
And I have no items to pull.
Mr. Mayor, while I don't wish to pull anything, I did have one word to add to the minutes, if I may.
Certainly.
On item number 25, Councilmember Hill commented on the appropriateness of the city charging for services, suggested that they be capped at market rate, and believed that parking permit fees issued should, I would insert the word only, be made in connection with added value.
You got which
Only.
minutes he's talking about.
Thank you.
Okay. Do any members of the public wish to pull an item?
Jim Mosher, number 4.
Not number 3?
Okay. Does anyone else wish to pull an item? All right, bring it back to council for a motion.
Move items 1 through 7 with the exception of 4 and 5, and with the amendment to the minutes recommended by Councilman Hill, and also with the changes in the City Council redistricting handout, the ordinance.
Was that part of it?
Yeah, I believe so. Aren't those changes supposed to be incorporated?
No, this was a comment by Mr. Mosher to that. That's why.
There are going to be some minor, there's some Scrivener's errors in the legal description.
No, we don't have to worry about that.
We don't need to worry
All
about
right.
that as part of the motion.
Then I eliminate that part from my motion.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. Okay, let's come back to items that were pulled.
Sir, prior to adopting and reading the vote for a consent calendar, I need to read the ordinance title for item 3. Ordinance number 2011-27, an ordinance of the City Council of City of Newport Beach, changing and redefining the boundaries of council districts. With that, the motion, Councilmember Rosansky? Is it up? Okay. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Now let's come back to items pulled. Item number 4, Mr. Mosher.
Mayor Henn and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosher. This item is titled An Approval of the Master Fee Schedule, but as you know, you approved the Master Fee Schedule on November 22nd. What this really is the second reading of the Cost Recovery Ordinance that purports to explain how some of those fees are arrived at, as well as some other ordinance that are deleting and changing references in the municipal code to outdated fees. The idea of setting user fees by determining the full cost of providing a service and then multiplying that by an agreed-to cost recovery percentage sounds like a very good idea, but I have to conclude from this ordinance, as you're about to pass it, that this isn't yet a very exact science. At the first reading, I pointed out 2 anomalies in the proposed ordinance, and they continue to baffle me. The first is the statement about dog licenses, which is on about the 3rd page in. I don't think these are numbered. The city currently charges $24 a year to license what I might call a normal dog and half that for a neutered one. To reflect that policy, the cost recovery table has long said that we were recovering only 50% of the cost of licensing the neutered dogs. But the ordinance you're passing tonight, this correction, says we can delete that provision because we've outsourced the dog licensing process. I don't know how many of you even know that we outsourced dog licensing, but that happened in 2009 when the Revenue Department or Division signed an agreement with a company in Texas. That company charges us a couple of dollars for checking the vaccination papers and issuing the tag. So I thought this might be a case where the city had realized savings by outsourcing but forgot to pass those savings on to the residents. However, the finance department has patiently explained to me that the dog license fee is intended not just to cover the cost of actually issuing the tag, but also the cost of providing animal control and animal shelter services, which they think is about $30 per year. And I think it's great that we're discounting the price for neutered pets, but I'm still wondering how outsourcing makes charging $12 for something that costs a $30 service anything other than the 50% subsidy it has always been. So I still do not understand why that is being removed. As a second example of how inexact this science is, I noted that the new ordinance says the cost recovery for renting the Friends Room at the Central Library is being increased from 0.2% to 1%, which I noticed is an increase of 5 times, yet the fee hasn't changed at all. I was thinking this was perhaps an acknowledgement that the cost recovery table had been wrong in the past and we had always been collecting 1% for renting that room, but even that doesn't compute because the same cost recovery table says we're recovering 45% of the cost of renting rooms at the Oasis Center. Yet the amount we charge to rent the very large event center at the Oasis Center at a 45% recovery rate is not 40 times what we charge to rent the Friends Room at the library at supposedly a 1% rate. Instead of being 45 times more, it's about 3 times more, actually not even quite that much. As with the appeal fees of $4,000 and $6,000, which are in the, not in this, but in the master fee schedule that you debated on November 22nd, it seems inescapable to me that at the moment there's a very large measure of arbitrariness in the fees that we're charging for user services. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments on this item? All right, bring it back to council for consideration and a motion. I guess I would make a comment here that my view would be that we should go ahead and pass this change, and that staff, I presume, took good notes about these comments that were made, and if after we research it, it looks like something should be corrected, you can always come back and recommend a correction, right?
That's correct, Mayor Henn. In regards to the dog license issue, I'm not sure if I fully understand, so I'll meet with Mr. Mosher separately, but you know, the dog license does comply with the government code because it's 50% of the regular license fee for spayed and neutered animals, so I'm not quite sure if I understand his comment there.
Okay, Tracy?
If I can make a comment. Tracy McCrane, our finance director. We did discuss the issues with Mr. Mosher, and I still stand by the report as provided to this council. And on the dog licensing, we did respond that we did not need the 50% recovery percentage in our ordinance because it's already covered by the government code, which trumps our ordinance, and therefore another reason why it was not needed. And we do still follow the government code. We charge a 50% recovery rate for altered dogs, which is per state law.
Okay. Any further comments? So I'll accept the motion.
So moved. Second.
And second. Please vote.
Prior to reading the votes, I'll read the ordinance titles. Ordinance number 2011-28, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending Section 3.36.030 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code. Ordinance number 2011-29, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending Newport Beach Municipal Code, Section 5.04.200, pertaining to duplicate license fees, and deleting Newport Beach Municipal Code, Sections 5.08.040, 5.08.050, 5.08.060, 5.08.070, and 5.08.080, and ordinance number 2011-30, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending sections 14.12.010, 14.12.090, 14.12.125, 14.20.010, 14.20.020, 14.20.050, 14.20.060, 14.20.070, and deleting section 14.20.030. With that, with Councilmember Daigle voting no, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Leilani. That was an excellent job reading the title of the ordinance. I'm sure it illuminated everyone in the room greatly. Okay, On to the next item that was pulled, Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Yes, in looking at the report, it says annually we do this, and then all of a sudden it's recommending 3 years, and I just wondered what the change in policy was.
My name's Rob Williams, Assistant Chief of Lifeguard Operations. Basically, we looked at having a 3-year contract with one vendor, which would be more efficient for us in dealings with one company and being able to brand one logo, which will be more cost efficient in a ordering and inventory over the second and third year practice of the agreement. Plus, with the volatile economy in the surfing industry, we don't know exactly what will happen with future clothing articles and prices, especially with cotton. This locks us in with a price with a 5% increase that was reviewed by purchasing and finance with us and agreed upon with Quicksilver. So it gives us security in the price, which we saw a bid from another vendor raise 40% from 2 years ago, which was a $50,000 increase. So we are locked in with this company for 3 years, which is more efficient in our opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
Just to follow up, the cost of this is picked up by the fees that the
Yes.
kids pay to join the
Yes,
program?
this is part of the junior lifeguard
Without
program.
going back to our fee schedule, is that 100% recovery on that?
We are very close to 100%
Close to 100%.
recovery.
Okay. Thank you.
Move the item.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have public comment on this item? Anyone wish to make a comment? Seeing none, please vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, that'll take care of the consent calendar. On to public comments.
Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Does anyone wish to make a comment?
Mayor, members of the council, my name is John Forens. I'm a resident of Newport Beach, but that's not the only reason I'm here today. I'm here because I'm also a member of the Orange County Grand Jury, current session. And the larger reason I'm here is because this is the time of year when we recruit new members to be effective next July. So, for those of you who may be interested, let me tell you something about the Grand Jury. Because a year ago, I knew nothing. I happened to show up, or I happened to be summoned to jury duty in Santa Ana, and there someone who looked something like me got up and spoke to the assembled people, and
John, you'll do better to the audience at home if you just speak to us.
Okay, thank you. I will do that.
The camera angle will be flattering for you, I'm sure.
There is no flattering camera angle for me. Today, after applying and being accepted to the grand jury, I now am one of 19 people who serve there. I've got 11 new brothers and 7 new sisters, and we're having a very, very good time. The presentation I saw got me interested because it was an opportunity to contribute. I retired in the year 2000, and I still had plenty of energy and a lot of curiosity, and this sounded like some way that I could contribute to the citizens of the county, as well as use that curiosity and learn a great deal of things about how government works. My prior career had nothing to do with government. It was all in the computer industry, so I decided, well, let's try it. I'll apply, and 300 other people applied from around the county. This is an opportunity, and I know everybody who is watching or attending has some interest in local government. So this is an opportunity to expand horizons. Not just one city, but all the cities, and there are more than 30 of them. And I must say about the current grand jury that even though there are 30 cities and 19 members of the grand jury, 4 of those members are from Newport Beach. Kind of unusual. So we were able to extend what we see as good city management in Newport Beach to not only other cities, but the county, the special districts, and all agencies that are funded by our tax dollars, and by some fee dollars, for example, the water districts. We learn, we watch presentations by all the county agency executives. learn what all those agencies do, how they're spending their money, how much money they're spending, whether or not it's benefiting the citizens of the county the way we think it should. And I must admit that the people on the grand jury have a huge variety of backgrounds. We have a couple of lawyers. We've got business management. I was a business manager. We have teachers. We have a nurse. And one last thing, since I see the red light going, we don't spend a lot of time in indictments, which was a curious fact, and it may be a new fact for most of you. In our particular year, we've spent, well, so far it's been 6 months, we've spent maybe a day every 2 weeks on an indictment. The rest of it is investigations into how our county runs its government. So it's a one-year commitment. It only pays $50 a year, so it's not for everybody. And if you happen to know somebody else who's maybe a little older than yourself and would be interested in giving back to the county, this is it. This is that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for 1 year to learn and to make a positive difference. And I'm sure Dave Kiff would be interested in knowing that if someone here has a background in the Internet and technology, that he would more than likely be happy to see them serve on the grand jury. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have other public comments?
Mayor Henn and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I don't think I need to remind any of you that just to our north, we have an airport owned by the county with a 5,700-foot runway pointed like a dagger at the heart of our city. To many of us, that airport is a convenience. To a few of us, it may even be an economic boon, but whatever else it is a constant threat to the quality of life for each and every one of us. Some take comfort in the restraints we have on the airport's growth, but those restraints, achieved in secret negotiations between city and county, have always come at considerable cost. In 1985, in the first settlement agreement, our negotiators obtained a definite cap on the number of commercial flights, which was a good thing. But to get that, they had to acquiesce to a vastly expanded passenger terminal with 14 loading bridges. When the agreement was extended in 2003, our negotiators obtained some continued restraint in the number of flights, but only by agreeing to a still larger terminal, which opened just last month, 50% bigger than before, with 20 loading bridges. I understand city and county officials are about to sit down to talk again, and I am frankly worried about what might be agreed to now. I'm even more worried that in a negotiation between two public bodies, someone has decided that it is in the public's interest for the public to be cut out of the discussion. We will apparently have no idea what thoughts are being offered, what compromises may be suggested, or how any new agreement was arrived at. In fact, I understand the new round of talks will be so secret that the city has asked the two citizens groups who may be permitted to have lawyers present to sign confidentiality agreements, and as bizarre as it may seem, the content of those confidentiality agreements is itself secret. As a result, to the best of my knowledge, we won't even know who is speaking for us. I don't know if the Board of Supervisors is going to think the time is finally right to build the 10,000-foot runway that was proposed in 1959, but I don't think those of us who have watched the increase in jet travel and terminal size in the last 50 years can feel complacent, nor do I think we will be well served by a deal struck by anonymous persons talking again behind firmly closed doors. I urge you to tear up the confidentiality agreements and to insist these negotiations be open and public. Thank you.
Thank you. I, for one, am not concerned about a confidentiality agreement, but perhaps someone on the Aviation Committee would like to comment on that.
No, but I think one of the things that I would be more comfortable with is that sort of the direction of this and the strategy of this be something that brought to the executive session of the council, though also confidential, so that the council has a sense and is okay with where this is going and who's at the table and all that. I know I sit on the negotiations with our compensation. We regularly check in with the council, so I think it would be good for what's being proposed only in a draft stage, that the rest of the council have privy to that, and certainly to say we like it, we don't like it, and we kind of like it, but change this. So I think at first of the year, that's something that we should take up.
Okay. Any other comment? Are there any other public comments?
10 more seconds.
Actually, sir, you did run over. Let me take there's another gentleman here that has a comment to make.
I don't mind giving the honored gentleman 10 seconds more if you'd like.
I would just like you to go next.
Thank you. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, thank you very much again for having me forward. My name's Earl Halliburton, and good friends and a customer with I Heart Puppies. Wanted to bring you up to date. You may have heard rumor or directly through emails and what have you that we had a little fundraiser. Basically, I think bottom line, you gentlemen and ladies and the Corona Del Mar Chamber of Commerce again outdid yourselves, and we had a wonderful Christmas walk. Weather cooperated. A lot of people enjoyed themselves, and I thought it was a great way to, as you talk about starting the Christmas gaiety in the program. Unfortunately, there was also a group of people for the first time that I can ever remember, a group of protesters who decided to attend the Christmas walk. And if you may, it kind of reminded me of a group of Grinches trying to steal Christmas away. But the Corona Del Mar and the Newport Beach residents prevailed and were not deterred. Susan, again, Bradford, the owner of I Heart Puppies, their employees and her children went to great efforts to put together a raffle and a fundraiser for the sheltered animals here in our local area, and we were quite successful. We, on Saturday alone at the Christmas walk, raised $501, and we're going to continue it through the end of the year. Hopefully we may end up totally with 2 to 3 times that amount to be donated to the Newport Beach again group here and passed on to, I understand it's Pick a Pet Foundation, and to help again the sheltered animals. I must say that I've learned one thing about OC local people. They can't be buffaloed against vehemency, waving signage, screams and shouts. They persevered better than I've ever seen, just like the buffaloes that used to, I guess, roam our countryside before we became a city. And they were not to be deterred at all, and that I was very proud of. We could have raised probably 2 to 3 times the amount of funding had we not been interfered with by the protesters. Bottom line, if Susan was up here at the podium, she'd tell you that selling puppies is what it's only part of what she sees as her role. That it's not just, again, employing people and running the business, but it's taking care of all animals in our area. And I think she's gone out of her way to show that she cares as much in her heart about the sheltered animals as she does her own animals in her store. And I'm just proud to be associated with her. Thank you, Council, very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has a comment? In the spirit of the holidays and charitable thinking, I'll allow you 10 more seconds, John. But please, just 10 seconds, okay?
I forgot to mention that I brought with me applications, the application packet. The application deadline is January 13th. And one last thing, on the internet, ocgrandjury.org. You can also get an application there if you know anyone who might be interested. And you can also see the reports that last year's grand jury wrote and the responses to those reports. Thank you.
We can only hope the grand jury employs as charitable an attitude toward Newport Beach as we do to you tonight. Okay. All right. On that comment, we will move on to oral reports from City Council on committee activities, and we'll start with Councilmember Rush.
I do
Hill.
have. Thank you, Mayor Mike.
I do have something sad and tragic to speak about this evening, and that many of you are aware, I'm sure, of the very tragic accident that we had at Newport Harbor High on Irvine Boulevard at Marguerite, or the Anchor crosswalk, this last week. A senior was hit while crossing the street, is in a medically induced coma, and is in extremely very critical condition. The tragedy is further expanded by the fact that she was hit by a driver that was on drugs and/or intoxicated at the time, it appears, and allegedly. And so as a result of that, the Newport Harbor High community, as unfortunately it's had to do in the past, has rapidly come together and joined with the city, the high school, the school district, including a representative from the student body, a representative from the high school site council, and a representative from the PTA, have met. Our city staff has come together. The Public Works, the city manager's office, and myself, we have met on a few occasions, and as of this afternoon, we have come up with identification of 16 items that could be worked on to significantly change the traffic flow and safety around various parts of the high school. We have narrowed those down to 6 items at today's meeting, some of which can be implemented in a very, very short period of time. Others will take months, and some of them even possibly a year to take place. But with great cooperation from our police department, they are continuing a presence there until which time our very first implementation item has been launched. A very big part of it is not only physical improvements by the city, but also an institutionalized educational program will be undertaken to ensure that we never again have a student that attends Newport Harbor High that has not been educated on the safety of literally crossing the streets around the school, of arriving and departing the campus. This truly is a tragedy for the Newport Beach community, for the Harbor High family, but have some comfort in the fact that that group has come together and is moving forward with what I believe to be very meaningful solutions to hopefully prevent this from ever happening again. Sadly, there is nothing we can probably ever do about someone that decides to become intoxicated and drive, but we'll do our best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hill. Councilmember Rosansky, did you have a committee report?
No, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner?
No.
Councilmember Daigle?
Yes, the Aviation Committee just mentioned we do meet monthly at the library, the fourth Monday of every month except for December. And we're there as part of our council's airport policy. I currently chair the committee. So for those of you interested in attending these meetings, they take place at 8 a.m. on Monday in the Friends Room of the Central Library. In our most recent meeting, the city was briefed on the Strel departure path. So that continues to be information provided to us. And as part of our ongoing relationship with the FAA, they have agreed to meet with the city. And so we're looking to put together that meeting. And they control the departures at the airport. So the city does not, the airport does not, the airlines do not. It squarely falls in the FAA. And the city manager and I, we met with a local aviation expert, and it came to my attention that, when the city had advocated for changes in 2 departure procedures, that what happened was that the FAA had to change 16,000 underlying charts. And I mention that because when we request these changes, it's a big deal for the federal government to make a change. So we are aware of the flights, the issues over Corona Del Mar, and as the FAA develops RALs, which is the next procedure, the city looks forward to providing input. So that's where we're going to be providing our input on those issues, is as FAA develops the rules procedure. The airport is on track to operate at approximately 8.7 million passengers this year, and it's 2.1 million less than the allowable 10.8 million person cap. And then, as mentioned, we look forward to try to move our negotiations forward on the settlement agreement with the county. The county has not did not make overtures towards us to begin these negotiations, so that's why they were not happening. But we think they're in a position to move forward at this stage. And if you want more information about the airport, you can always go to our city website. We have a great deal of information posted, or you can also contact the city manager's office. So thank you.
Councilmember Curry.
Thank you. The Finance Committee did meet, and I'm pleased to report that our three major revenue sources are, we're still waiting to see our property tax numbers, but appear to be right on target. But what I'd like to do is just take this opportunity, though, to compliment Councilmember Hill for the job that he has done in the light of the tragedy on Irvine Avenue and pulling people together in the community and keeping the other members of the council informed and in marshaling the resources of the city to address this issue. This is comparable to the traffic situation we had at Newport Coast Drive and Pelican Hill Road a few years ago, but he was too modest in describing his own role in bringing the resources together to address this issue and do it in a very effective way, and I just want to compliment him for his leadership in that regard.
Councilmember Selich.
Nothing this evening.
And I have no reports for this evening, so we'll move on to current business, the first of which is the memorandum of agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Do we have a staff presentation?
We do, Mr. Mayor and council members, and Chris Miller will lead that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. 2011 has been a great year for dredging, and I'm happy to be here on the last meeting of the 2011 Council to talk about our next project and see how we can bring in 2012 with our future project. So this evening we'll be talking about, or we'll be asking the Council to look at three action items. One is to authorize the mayor to execute a Corps memorandum of agreement for dredging. The second would be to adopt a budget amendment for city contributions of $2.5 million, which would actually be a loan from the general fund to the Tidelands Fund. And three, to establish or adopt a resolution that would in turn allow us to accept donations from private parties as well as a contribution from the county. What I wanted to do is give a brief overview of what the Lower Bay dredging is all about, and I've got some slides here, and I'll go through them quickly. But I wanted to let you know where we're at. What this chart is, it's hard to see. The colors aren't well defined, but primarily, if you just focus on the red area right here, the red area represents areas of the harbor that are below -10 mean low or low water, meaning it's shallow. So these areas, keep those in your memory right now, because I'm going to go to the next slide and show you what our current plan is. And if you'll remember from the previous slide that most of the areas that you see in yellow, or green rather, are the areas that were in red or shallow on the previous slide. So we're doing our best to focus on the shallow areas, and we're also doing our best to focus on the material that is unsuitable for ocean disposal. What that means is we have just like in the Rhine Channel project, we could not dispose of the Rhine Channel material out at what we call LA3, which is our ocean disposal site. So our big dilemma with the Rhine Channel, as the council knows, is what to do with that material. Well, we found our solution at the Port of Long Beach. What we're able to do is, at the end of the Rhine Channel project, the city asked the Port of Long Beach, could you please extend your window of opportunity for the city and allow us to deposit an additional about 130,000 cubic yards of material at the Port of Long Beach, represented by some of these areas in this area, in this area, in this area, and a little bit right here and down here. And the Port of Long Beach, through a memorandum of agreement that the City Council approved earlier this year, agreed. A couple points about this Lower Bay dredging project is that we're shooting for, again, to get at least minus 11 mean lower low water, as that slide from 2 slides ago with the depths showed. We're taking our material to the Port of Long Beach. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The project's already approved by all the agencies, and it is an extremely low-cost solution, mainly for the unsuitable material, and we have a home for it. If we didn't have a home for it, as the council knows, we would be forced to find other, more expensive ways of disposal. And the project itself would be managed by the Corps of Engineers with heavy city involvement. We would think that the project would be complete around June. Mostly the deadline that we are really shooting for, though, is the March 14th deadline that the Port of Long Beach has given us. And then I think the other material that is clean will be done probably sometime before summertime. This project is really just an interim solution to a major dredging project, which is estimated at $25 million, but we simply don't have the funds to tackle that, so we're doing the best we can with the funds that are available. What I'd like to go into here is kind of describe the different components of our dredging project and how we determined which areas with all the constraints that we had, with the suitable material, the unsuitable material, the funding, the navigational needs, the needs of the community, with all those factors kind of thrown up in the air, how we determined what areas we would put into this project. So the first area is the federal project components, and this is what's considered the Corps' when they put their project out to bid. They had a base bid item, and that looks like this. You'll see all the green area, and that's the Corps' base bid item. The second component are the environmental components. That's what I was talking about with the Port of Long Beach, and you can see that on this map represented by all of the yellow areas. So you have a box right here, and it corresponds to these colors. It's kind of hard to see, but this is yellow right here, as opposed to green. The third component that we used in identifying which areas were critical navigation components that were benefits to all harbor users. And that would be represented by these orange areas right here. Now, the reason why those are beneficial, because if you take this area as an example, if we're going to be dredging this area right here down to deeper, and we're going to be dredging this area deeper, but we have a hump right here, well, then how does that make this channel useful? So this is where this critical navigation component comes into play. Same goes for here. If you're going up the main navigational channel and you've got it's deep here, but then you've got shallow here, it really doesn't make any sense to have you need to have that dredged in order to get through that area. The fourth component would be other permitted components, and these are remaining areas that are permitted by the Corps and their project management, and we'd like to see if maybe we can include these into our project to kind of complete our project, represented by this purple area right here, which is in the a little bit shy of the anchorage area and in the channel and the F and mooring fields there, as well as this channel or this section of the channel here. And then there's the fifth component, which are potential additional areas that we would be looking at possibly as part of this project or in the future. And really what this means is, well, certainly we're going to be looking at, this says regular periodic harbor maintenance dredging. Once we get done with this project, I think the Tidelands Management Committee has expressed a deep interest to continue on with the maintenance dredging in our harbor at a prescribed interval of time, so that every 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, we're doing a project, so we don't have the big project that we have today. Also, this channel right here is what I'm calling the Linda Isle Harbor Island channel. This actually, this wider section right here is owned by the county Tidelands, and this is city Tidelands right here. And we're well on our way to developing a dredging plan that could very well dovetail into our current Lower Bay dredging project, and maybe near the end of this project, funding and other issues that come into play. If all the stars align, it is possible that, or we'll make an effort to see if we can dredge this area as well. Now a little bit about cost and funding. To remind everybody in the audience, the city of Newport Beach 100% funded the Rhine Channel dredging project, which was completed in November 2011 for $4 million. For the Lower Bay project, we're looking at about a $7.5 million project. We've got assured funding from the federal government of about $2.4 million. Interestingly, when I was talking about the Corps' base bid, when this project has already been put out to bid, and the project has not been awarded yet. The reason why it hasn't been awarded yet is because the dredger's bid price was more than $2.4 million. So there's a gap there. The federal government has 2.4, but the contractor bid 2.8. So we're in this holding pattern right now, waiting for the memorandum of agreement to be approved by the Assistant Secretary of the Army in Washington, D.C., and then waiting for this evening's council meeting so that so the Corps could work on getting the remaining funds that were the difference between 2.4 and 2.8 and awarding the contract. There's also, so what that means is we've got about $5.1 million to complete the core permitted components, and it's unknown. We'd have to figure out what the other components, like the Linda Isle dredging component and other areas would be. So there's also some county tidelands involved in our Lower Bay project, and that equates to about $675,000 that the county would be responsible for. We've reached out to the county and requested that they consider this, and to date they are very excited about this, and it looks positive that they'll be able to help us with the funding that is in their county tidelands and their responsibility to maintain. The city funding could contribute $2.5 or so million, and that's to be considered tonight. That will cover most of the all of the Port of Long Beach material and some of the critical navigation components. And we're looking for private donations somewhere in the $1.5 to $2 million range. So total funding needed is about $5.1 million. The additional dredging could be more. Just a note on the private donations. Of course, all the donations would be secured in a dedicated fund that would be used specifically for dredging, and that's all they'll be used for. They'll be tax deductible, and it'll be like sealed dedicated money. And really, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions and go from there.
Good. Thank you, Chris. Council, any council questions regarding this presentation? Councilmember Rosansky.
Not so much a question, but just a comment that should we go forward with this, the city's committing significant amount of funding to this project. And I just want to follow up that it's sort of in line with what the promises that we've been making to the harbor community, the boating community. I mean, about a year ago, I think it is now, we raised fees on certain, on the moorings. We raised fees on the city's marina. But the promise at the time was that money would be put back into the harbor and that services would be improved. And this is evidence of that, I think, going forward. And as we tackle other issues in the harbor as far as commercial leases and residential piers and things like that, the public should keep in mind that, you know, the money as it is now is coming out of our general fund. We're hoping to be reimbursed at some point in time because this is a Thailand's expense, but the Thailand's revenues are significantly less than the Thailand's expenses. And so as we review our agreements with the harbor users, and fees inevitably are probably going to go up, at least you can see the evidence that the money is being put to a good use. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Selich?
You know, this agreement tonight is really, I think it's a first step towards the larger project here that Chris put on the board. I think it's important that we move ahead on it, and also that after the first of the year that we come back and look at this item in a little bit more detail, particularly in terms of some of the other resources that are going to be necessary or would like to obtain there from the county, and also what happens with the private funding aspect of it. But kind of put it together in a larger program that I think for right now we certainly need to move ahead on this project. It's a time where we have a rare opportunity. These permits are difficult to get. The permits are there. The Corps of Engineers is going to manage it. The contractors are there. It's a good time from a pricing standpoint. We have the Port of Long Beach standing by, ready to pick up this unsuitable material. The chances of this series of events coming together in the near future is unlikely, and if it ever did, it would be extremely difficult and time-consuming to put it back together again. So I think it's important that we move ahead with this.
Councilmember Curry?
Well, I would certainly echo those remarks. You know, the harbor has not been comprehensively dredged since initially when President Roosevelt was president. It was done through the combination of bond funds. Local residents campaigned throughout Orange County to get a bond issue approved and use that to match federal funds to make the project work. The harbor is one of our most significant economic resources, and it's up to us as stewards of the harbor to make sure that it continues to be the resource that it is for boaters and for people who come to visit our community and for residents going forward in the future. So I would certainly support this, and I would move the item tonight because I think this is a very important step in maintaining the economic and the environmental viability of our harbor.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Selich. Councilmember Daigle?
Yes, I think opening this up to contributions in the community is a great idea. I was talking to some folks this morning that really would have the resources and the interest in participating and contributing. So, you know, people just love the harbor in our community, and they recognize its viability is essential on many fronts. So I think that there are resources in our community, and I think that you will find people will step up and contribute.
Okay. I would make a further comment. You might have noticed that there was some play in those numbers. The city piece, $2.5 to $3 million, private funding, $1.5 to $2 million, and then there's an additional potential project between Harbor Island and Linda Isle that could be $1 million or more, and so there is still play here in terms of getting to a more careful presentation that we will need. I agree, Councilmember Selich, in January. And so I intend to personally do what I can to move forward and identify potential private sources of funding for this. And I'll be looking to have conversations with key members of the harbor community over the next month or so. We have little time to waste here. We have a hard deadline in March with the Port of Long Beach on this unsuitable sediment that needs to go up there. And so we will need to have a fully formed plan here by March, in my view. And so I'm very hopeful that your sense of the private community is accurate, Councilmember Daigle, and we're going to find that out, I think, over the next month or so with the able assistance of Chris Miller and other members of staff. I'm optimistic about that, and we'll be moving forward. So with that, we'll take public comment on this item.
Mayor, council members, Denise Oberman. I just really had a couple of questions. One is, I was wondering what the source of revenues would be relative to the tie-ins, and perhaps that could be answered either on or offline. I wasn't familiar with the revenue stream there. And secondly, I assume that this project is of comparable criticality to the $2 million bridge next to the doggy park at the upcoming Civic Center? No, it's not? Okay. But
not
there
to
are,
some of us.
Okay, so I would point to the fact that there are some excess funds in the contingency fund associated with that project from the explanation that I heard at the last city council meeting. So rather than a loan, perhaps the council could consider those monies. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, could you pretty succinctly summarize Tideland's revenue sources?
So our Tideland's revenues, they're in the budget, if anybody wants to check it out, under the revenue section. But basically, the big items are, for instance, the Balboa Bay Club. All that income goes to the Tidelands Fund. Their marina, their operations, they are on Tidelands. The Beacon Bay residences, that goes into the Tidelands Fund. Moorings, concessions like the piers, as well as I'm saying the piers, the ocean piers, like the Rubies and the Newport Fish Company, as well as some parking and the residential pier fees that come in, as well as the commercial pier fees. But again, it'll be all in this document if you want to look exactly. What else, Mr. Rosansky?
Oil fields.
Oil fields, too. Big chunk of it. Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to council for a vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the resolution title, Resolution Number 2011-112, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach relating to a lower Newport Bay dredging project. With that, the motion carries unanimously.
Excellent.
As that does pass, I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to thank Public Works, including Chris, for the hard work on this effort. It really has been an awful lot of time, and Mr. Curry stated it, but it can't be stated. It can't be overstated how important this project is and how it's never been done before, certainly in our generation. And I certainly thank the Tidelands Committee for their hard work on this, Tidelands Management Committee.
So Chris is riding high in the saddle right now, having just finished a wonderful project with the Rhine Channel dredging and now this. So I'd add my congratulations.
That's right. It's only downhill from here.
Councilmember Rosansky.
Actually, you kind of stole my thunder there. I did want to compliment Chris on the excellent job that he did on the dredging. He kept not only the council, but I believe the entire boating community, as well as anybody else in the community who was interested in the project. Project finished way ahead of schedule. I don't know if we were under budget. I'm assuming we had a contract or whatever. But it seemed I got zero complaints about the thing, and it was just a total home run. So if there's Employee of the Week, I suggest you give it to Chris this week.
And actually, since Ralph Rodheim is out there too, we're neglectful in not thanking the Harbor Commission for keeping this item on everyone's agenda. That's been very important, and we're happy to move forward on it.
Great. Okay, on to the next item, which is the appointment of a member to the Visit Newport Beach Executive Committee.
Mr. Mayor and council members, so this is an item to select one of two nominees that the nominating committee has screened. That is Paul Blank and Dennis O'Neill to fill what is a new position for the city. It's voting membership on the Visit Newport Beach Executive Committee. And Visit Newport Beach is the destination marketing organization for our area. So unless you had any other questions, that would conclude the staff comments.
Okay, do we have comments from council on this item? Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Obviously, we can't go wrong with either of these individuals, but I do want to put in a plug for Paul Blank. I've worked with Paul on just getting to know him and doing some things with the city, and he's just so, he's just a nice person for one thing, but he's got the background. He has actual visitors experience. He ran Costa Laguna down in Laguna Beach, and he was very instrumental in working together a whole marketing program for Laguna Beach and their visitors bureau. So I think he's got some little extra qualification here. I hardly recommend him.
Okay, well, I would second those remarks in the respect that we've really got two excellent candidates here. It's a happy problem to try and choose between them as to which is the best. It's another illustration of the tremendous spirit of community volunteerism here in Newport Beach. No matter who wins this vote, I'm hopeful that the person that didn't win will continue to find ways to stay involved here on behalf of the city. Absent any other council conversation, we'd like to take public comment on this item.
Mayor Henn and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier, For the last few weeks, a somewhat uncomfortable spotlight has been shining on our imperfect but hopefully always improvable process of making appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. The present staff report adds slightly to the confusion by suggesting at one point that this opportunity to serve on the Visit Newport Beach Board of Directors was announced at your November 8th meeting, with interviews being conducted a week later on November 16th. In fact, you had weeks before authorized the city clerk to advertise the meeting, which she did starting October 1st. So there was, in this case, a 20-day application window in which I believe 7 applications were received. That said, as Councilman Curry pointed out at your last meeting, this traditional process is not perfect, nor is the one for the next appointment you're going to make. I would suggest that the transparency of the process might be in the future improved by including in reports like this the full list of the applicants' names, including those who were chosen to be interviewed and what special qualities or qualifications led to the selection of the 2 finalists we see before us tonight. However the selection process may be, Visit Newport Beach, which is a private nonprofit with whom we contract to spend $2.8 million of tax revenues each year, and half that again of money collected from what we call a tourism bid, is an organization very much in need of oversight, and I hope whoever you appoint will be working with you and the city staff on improving that. At the moment, from the public's point of view, this is very much like dropping money into a black box and hoping for a good result. Visit Newport Beach has from the beginning largely ignored their obligations to seek yearly council approval of their budget, and they routinely fail to notice the board meetings at which T-bid matters are discussed. In fact, Visit Newport Beach is such an opaque organization that when I went to their office yesterday to ask to see the current board rules under which this appointee will be operating, I was told they are a private organization and that information is not publicly available. I find that attitude unacceptable in an organization spending our tax dollars, especially when the tax returns they file with the IRS, which are freely available on the California Attorney General's website, clearly state that in the interest of transparency, they voluntarily make their board bylaws and other documents freely available for public inspection. I don't know if they are lying to me or to the IRS, but as a result of that, I'm not sure if Visit Newport Beach has agreed to expand their board of directors to accommodate an additional city representative, or if this director will be replacing someone else, such as the city librarian, who apparently has been on their board for the last year, although it's not a position that seems to show up in the tax report. I'm also unclear as to whether the current citizen appointee is going to be appointed for life, or if the city clerk will be adding this position to the list of opportunities for citizen service that she publishes each year. Whoever you appoint, I hope you will ask that nominee to report back to you so that you and the public will have a better view of how this board operates, and in particular whether its obligations to its major stakeholders, such as the 6 T-bid members, affect in any way how it handles its obligations to the overall city. Thank you.
Okay, further comment?
Cindy Kohler, West Newport. I have something for you all, Dave, if you want to. In regards to this appointment, I remembered reading an article that Bob Rush had written in the Daily Pilot, and I want to read you an excerpt of that article, and this is what troubled me. This is Bob Rush. I visited the rehab and was met at the front door by their attorney, who was a former Newport Beach mayor and Newport Beach Citizen of the Year, Dennis O'Neill. The former mayor toured us through their drug rehab facilities, honeycombed throughout Lido Village. As he lobbied their perspective on the permit and the larger issues of Newport's rehab proliferation, it seems strange that my tour guide now played such a role in his own city as a rehab advocate. O'Neill's role that day and his position as Citizen of the Year and former mayor seemed contradictory in my mind and caused me to wonder just how deep did this the reach of this rehab go into Newport's political and civic elite. Now, I don't know about you, but if Mr. O'Neill was appointed to this committee, in my opinion, it would create a huge perception problem for the city, for the simple fact that he worked, represented, and sold rehab down here at a time when sober living by the sea completely overtook and blighted our peninsula. At a time when all of the operators, including Sober Living by the Sea, were using our brand, Newport Beach, to sell the beaches, the bays, the boats, our lifestyles, all plastered across their websites, basically using Newport Beach to sell and promote rehab. That troubles me and the thousands of people who contributed to Mourn and Concerned Citizens. The perception and public trust is important to a well-functioning government, in my opinion. And to me, at this point, even if Mr. O'Neill's intentions were honorable, and I'm sure they probably are, there is nothing, in our opinion, that he could say or do that would persuade us to believe he is there solely to promote tourism. I don't think, when all this happened, with all these people contributing to fight the overconcentration down here of rehab homes for the peace of their neighborhoods, it would be in the best interest of the cities to appoint Mr. Dennis O'Neill. I don't know Mr. O'Neill, but in reading that and what I know about him, I would ask you to consider that information. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Other comment?
Good evening. Lori Morris, West Newport. I would like to also begin by making it clear that I have no personal vendetta against Dennis O'Neill. I wouldn't know him if I passed him on the street. But for years, his name has been attached to everything that has negatively affected my community and my quality of life. My statement has been pulled from information from several members of the community and myself. So to say I was stunned to read that Dennis O'Neill is being considered for this appointment is putting it mildly. Councilman Mike Henn and Councilman Rush Hill and our next new mayor, Nancy Gardner, nominated Dennis O'Neill to fill this Visit Newport Beach Executive Committee. Would this be the same Dennis O'Neill that Rush Hill introduced as his election campaign manager for 2010? The same Dennis O'Neill who in 2007 was attorney for the largest drug rehab operator in Newport Beach, Sober Living by the Sea, who helped them to critically overconcentrate in West Newport to levels never seen before in the entire state. The same drug rehab, with the help of Mike Henn, was given a city sweetheart agreement that guaranteed and locked in overconcentration levels for their residential drug rehabs for the next 25 years, and no one can legally revoke it. The agreement was so deficient for the community that every attorney reading it called it a blatant charade, except for Councilman Rosansky. But it gets better and it gets weirder, your choice. Councilman Henn has also appointed Mr. O'Neill for the Charter Review Committee, in which Mr. O'Neill helped remove the limitations of donations that the City Council can make to the Chamber of Commerce, while Mr. O'Neill was a Chamber of Commerce board member and sat on the Chamber's Political Action Committee, which uses Chamber donations to support political candidates of their choosing. In other words, Mr. O'Neill helped to remove controls that now could likely cause taxpayer dollars to be channeled into the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce PAC to be used for their political ends. By the way, this is the same Dennis O'Neill, then the same Chamber PAC that helped get Councilman Henn elected in 2006. So this is really beginning to smell. Additionally, this is the same Dennis O'Neill who, as a Chamber and Chamber PAC member, has supported personally and with other board members every liquor license applicant that has come down the pike and wants to set up shop in West Newport and the Lido Peninsula area. You know, the community could have used Mr. O'Neill's legal expertise before the city signed that sweetheart agreement, but maybe he was already working quietly behind the scenes on that agreement on behalf of the drug rehab industry. As we see, this is now, or we'll see if either one of you or three of you are going to shoe in Dennis O'Neill to the Visit Newport Beach Executive Committee. Maybe Dennis O'Neill will create a drug rehab tourism board. Something to think about. They already use our brand to sell their rehabs on all of their websites, especially Lido Village. In my opinion, and other people who have been in this fight for our community, Dennis O'Neill has done everything he can to promote and dump massive amounts of drug addicts, rehabs, liquor licenses, and liquor-related problems on the very place that he would now be responsible for promoting. And that's a farce. When people visit Newport Beach, they don't go to the port streets. They come to our beaches and our harbor, places that Dennis O'Neill was paid to pollute for years and who never reached out to the community who was struggling with this matter. I would ask that you not elect him and nominate him to this position. I don't know anything about Paul Blank, but at this point, he's the only choice. Please do not appoint Mr. O'Neill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make a comment on this item?
Denise Oberman. There are two very intelligent candidates on the table. Certainly looking to the background and qualifications relative to what the mission is in this appointment, Paul Blank clearly has superior qualifications to perform this job for the benefit of the community and our economic vitality. Mr. O'Neill's obviously a very bright, capable guy, but more as a special interest consultant and a political advisor rather than somebody that has a good insight into what's needed to be done to enhance the economic and community vitality and to develop it and encourage people to enjoy this area with some stickiness. So I agree. It begs the question of conflicts of interest and cronyism to consider Mr. O'Neill for this type of appointment, and I'd encourage you to do the right thing and look at the right, best qualified candidate to perform this most important function for our city. Thank you.
Okay, further comment? All right, I'll bring it back to council. We will need a motion and a second to conduct the appointment pursuant to council policy A2. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Second. All right, do we have any further conversation on this from council? Councilmember Selledge.
You know, I just can't sit here and be quiet. Those characterizations of Dennis O'Neill are completely untrue. I've known that man for 15 years. He's done nothing but good things for this community. He's served on the city council. He served as mayor. And I think it's unfortunate to hear those kind of characterizations of a person that's done nothing but good for this community.
Councilmember Curry.
I would only second those comments. We do have two very fine candidates for this position. It's amazing, though, that we have anybody who applies for a job and they have to come and hear themselves trashed by people who don't even know who they are as part of the process. I think that's just absolutely disgraceful.
Councilmember Hill.
I would like to echo the last two council individuals. I have known Dennis O'Neill for a considerable length of time, and I find those statements that were made absolutely false without any merit whatsoever.
Councilmember Rosansky.
And lastly, I'll chime in. Dennis also represents Hoag Hospital, which is a venerated institution in this community, as well as served on other committees, supported many efforts in this town through OASIS, probably most recently, in fundraising. And I agree. It's a shame that people that come forward. And I would also add, ladies, that I wouldn't rely on Mr. Rush for your proof as to someone's character, because we all know why. Thank you.
Okay, so with that then, we will proceed to a vote. We will vote by marking a paper ballot, each of us, for one of the candidates, and then the city clerk will total the ballots. Pardon? All right, I guess we need to vote on the motion that was made to follow policy A2. So please vote on the motion on the table. Please vote on the motion on the table.
Motion carries unanimously. Now to proceed with the voting, Councilmember Curry voted for Dennis O'Neill. Councilmember Rosansky voted for Dennis O'Neill. Councilmember Hill voted for Dennis O'Neill. Councilmember Daigle voted for Dennis O'Neill. Councilmember Selich voted for Dennis O'Neill. Mayor Pro Tem Gardner voted for Paul Blank. And Mayor Henn voted for Dennis O'Neill. Dennis O'Neill is appointed to the Visit Newport Beach Executive Committee.
Thank you, and then you'll send appropriate letters to both Paul and Dennis in respect of that.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I would like to echo some of the earlier comments. The other gentleman that was being considered, the committee had the opportunity to interview him, and we must find a position for him in the city government. He is an outstanding individual, has a tremendous amount of talent and a tremendous amount of energy, and want to see him involved.
Very good. All right, let's move on to the next agenda item, which would be the appointment of a new member to the Planning Commission to serve until June 30th of 2012. The procedure here is a bit different than the procedure we just observed in that we did waive council policy A2, and so we will be considering as candidates for appointment all of those who filed a timely application to be considered. And we'll go further with explanation about that at the appropriate time. So, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
If we do, a very brief one, because I think it's clear it's clear what you're about to vote on, and you have a ballot with 26 different names on it, and we're the three of us, so Leilani, Aaron, and myself are here to assist, assuming there's a good understanding about the process. And as I understand it, the process, at least initially, after public comment, would be for you to vote on a first ballot, and if someone has 4 votes at that point, that person would become the next planning commissioner. If someone has 3 and a couple of others have 1, we would narrow it down, for instance, to those, say, that individual and whoever's the top, say, 2 or 3 vote getters at that point. We can be more specific if we get to that.
Okay, do we have comments from council on this item? All right,
Actually, I've objected to this process in the last few meetings where we've waived the policy, so I will reiterate my objection. I will be voting because we're not voting on the process, we're voting on the actual applicants. And there's, unless I decide to just abstain, which I don't want to do, but I will reiterate my objections to how we got to this place.
Okay. Do we have comments from the public on this agenda item?
Mayor Henn and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I wanted to offer a couple of thoughts which may or may not be helpful to you in making your decision, particularly as it relates to the stated objective, which was to hurry along the appointment process so as to have a full complement of 7 planning commissioners available to hear presentations about the Banning Ranch project. First, although it is not enforced as rigorously as it is for the City Council, it has been a tradition to try to achieve geographic diversity in the Planning Commission membership. So to that end, you might wish to know that with the departure of Chair Unsworth, the Planning Commission will be left with 2 members from District 7, which is the Newport coast end of town, but none from District 1, which is the peninsula, and none from District 2, which is the part of the city that wraps around Banning Ranch and is the part most affected by it. Also, the Planning Commission currently has no women on it. With that in mind, although the applications before you have among them, unfortunately, none from District 1, you do have 5 applicants from District 2, and 2 of those neither of whom I know are women, Andrea Hughes and Kimberly Jameson. In addition, it may be helpful to know that one of the District 2 candidates, Michael Alty, who I'm sure is an excellent candidate and fully qualified, appears from the address in the unredacted version of his application to live probably just under 500 feet from the Banning Ranch property line, which under FPPC rules would probably mean he has to recuse himself from hearing the matter. And likewise, if no one has checked with the applicants, as would probably have been part of the normal interview process, it is quite possible some of the other applicants, whatever district they live in, may have reasons that would prevent them from hearing the Banning Ranch presentation, such as perhaps owning stock in ExxonMobil or some other business connection. So that part I'm in the dark about. I did check where they live. I can't tell you what their other conflicts might be. And finally, I would like to point out that the list of applicants seems very rich, as does the current Planning Commission, with people who have a background in or a connection with the building and real estate development industry. Since that represents only a very small segment of the city's overall population, I would suggest that you give special consideration to, rather than discounting, applicants with different backgrounds who might bring a different perspective to the planning decisions. Those are my comments, and you will do whatever you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. I'll need a motion to consider the applications and appoint an applicant who receives a majority of support from the council to fill the remainder of Commissioner Unsworth's unexpired term.
So move. Second.
Motion and a second. Let's not make the same mistake twice. Let's vote on that motion, and to the extent that there's any. Is there conversation, Councilmember Curry?
Nope.
Okay. Please vote.
With Council Members Rosansky and Mayor Pro Tem Gardner voting no, the motion carries.
Okay. Now that we have the authorization to proceed, we will. So each council member should select one person to vote for, and then we'll tally the votes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, while the votes are being counted, before we know who's won, I would just say, too, that as with the previous appointment here, we have a plethora of outstanding applicants. I had the opportunity to either talk or communicate via email with several of them. And I am certainly hopeful that we can find a position in the city for many of these outstanding leaders, irrespective of how the results come out today, going forward, because we do have some great and very talented people in the city who are ready to serve.
Okay.
And with that, we're ready. With Councilmember Daigle voted for number 24, Larry Tucker. Councilmember Hill voted for Larry Tucker. Councilmember Rosansky, Larry Tucker. Councilmember Ed Selich, Larry Tucker. Councilmember Keith Curry, Larry Tucker. Mayor Pro Tem Gardner, number 22, Tim Stokes. And Mayor Henn, number 24, Larry Tucker. That's 6 for Mr. Tucker and 1 for Tim Stokes. So the appointee to serve for the term of former Commissioner Unsworth's term of June 30th, 2012 is Larry Tucker.
Thank you, and you'll inform the remainder
Yes,
via
sir.
letter and thank them for their participation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that takes care of the regular agenda on items to be moved on. Are there motions for reconsideration for any of the items that we've considered so far? Seeing none, we'll move on to the council reorganization, where we will consider the appointment of the mayor and the mayor pro tem. Because of new regulations, we'll be doing this a little differently. I'll turn the gavel over to our city clerk at this point, and then we'll have an explanation of the reason for this change of procedure.
Yes, the Fair Political Practices Commission has recently advised cities that a council member who is nominated for the position of mayor should not participate in the decision because the mayor position receives some additional compensation that the other council members do not receive. Hence, whoever is nominated for the position of mayor should recuse themselves and leave the room while the vote's occurring.
In short, we could refer to this as the conflict two-step. Is that right? Okay.
That's a great way to describe it.
Okay. Not the Texas two-step. Okay. So with that, then, we will take nominations here. I'm sorry,
Sir.
City Clerk will take
Thank you.
nominations.
Well, this is the time for the election of the mayor. All members of the city council are now on an equal basis to nominate and elect. The same procedure is also followed for the mayor pro tem position. This is the time to nominate as many for mayor as you choose. Let's see. If there is more than one nomination, we will, it'll be done by paper ballot. So now is the time for nominations. Do I hear any?
Madam Clerk, I'd like to nominate a person that I've come to respect and admire over the last 5 years, someone who I think has the highest degree of integrity and great leadership skills. I'd like to nominate Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations?
I'll move nominations be closed.
All right. So we'll need to vote on the closure of nominations, I presume?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a motion to close nominations. Please vote.
Well, I just want the record to reflect that Ms. Gardner has recused herself and left the room.
With that, the motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
All right. I
If
guess
someone
we
can
now
bring
need
her
to,
back,
we're not done yet. We only voted on the closure.
Oh, you're right, you're right. Just the closing of nominations.
Nancy Gardner is a dancer, but I think she just did a three-step. All right. We will now vote
Now.
on the nomination
And we will do that by lights. So,
by Mayor Pro Tem Gardner for mayor.
Councilmember Gardner at this point for mayor. With that, she is selected mayor, 6-0. If she can now return. Yes. Congratulations, Mayor Gardner.
So the mayor can no longer be accepted unanimously?
Well, by a 7-0 vote, it's still unanimous, but, yeah.
By a 6-0.
Yeah, it can only be 6-0 instead of 7-0.
And now the mayor conducts the mayor pro tem elections.
And just as a note, the new FPPC regulations also apply to the mayor pro tem position since they can assume the role of mayor. In that whoever's nominated for mayor pro tem will need to leave the room as well.
Thank you for
Again, lead this. Is that correct?
clarifying that.
Oh, I lead this one now?
Yes, ma'am.
City Attorney.
All right.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
We will now consider the election of the mayor pro tem. Do I have any nominations?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to nominate an individual that I have grown to respect on the council that has brought some significant financial leadership and stability to the city, and that would be Councilperson Keith Curry.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Doesn't make any difference. I'll second it.
Are there any other nominations?
I move that nominations be closed.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
And before you vote, just may the record reflect that Councilmember Keith Curry has left the room and recused himself.
So we're first voting on the motion?
Correct. On the motion to close nominations. The motion carries to close nominations. Don't come in yet, Mr. Curry.
And now we will vote for Mr.
For
Curry.
the mayor pro tem position. The motion carries unanimously, 6-0 for Councilmember Curry to now become Mayor Pro Tem Curry.
So we need to choose seats.
Oh, now we do the seat. So it starts with the senior. Are you senior, Steve?
I'll retain my existing seat.
All right, and then,
I'm fine here.
all right. Ed?
I'm fine.
All right.
Just for the record, I prefer to take the seat next to Councilmember Selich.
You'll be sorry when I'm gone.
We all said it? All right. Well, I have the pleasure of presenting to our recently stepped-down mayor, Mr. Henn, a plaque from the city. Michael Henn, Mayor, 2010-2011, with your gavel. We want to thank you. You did a marvelous job. I've watched, as Mayor Pro Tem, the kind of energy and dedication you brought to this role. It makes me tired just to think about it. You have an amazing capacity for detail. You led us through a number of interesting issues and different times, and you did it so successfully. I am very happy to have been your Mayor Pro Tem, and I can only hope to be a shadow of your wonderful accomplishments. So, present this to you.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
Councilman Henn, would you like to say a few words?
I would. I'll try to get through this quickly. A year ago, I set an agenda that focused on increasing the level of long-term and generational planning for our city. Newport's been the beneficiary of excellent planning throughout its history, and this council should assure its contribution to this legacy for future generations. I defined the focus on generational planning to include 5 primary areas, including the extension of the John Wayne Settlement Agreement, fundamentally reorganizing the delivery of services to our residents, master planning of the city's tidelands, neighborhood revitalization for those areas of our city that don't measure up to our high quality of life standards, and substantially reforming the city's retirement costs and benefits. I'm happy that this agenda was enthusiastically embraced by my fellow council members and the city staff and the public at large. And overall, I believe we've made substantial progress on generational planning. And I'll just take a second here to sort of punctuate that statement. As to the John Wayne settlement extension, as Councilmember Daigle pointed out earlier, we haven't yet started those discussions, but I am very confident that the Council Aviation Committee and staff have set that process up to advantage, and that the predicates are in place to move forward very soon with the negotiations, and I'm optimistic that our goals will be achieved. As to the fundamental reorganization of the delivery of city services, this is an ongoing process. It's a staff-led process, and achievements to date include completion of the highly successful reorganization of our building and planning departments that you heard about earlier today. I still get emails on a regular basis from our citizens about what a great job our building and planning departments are doing these days. We've done selective outsourcing of city services, including street sweeping, beach trash pickup, parking operations management, saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year while preserving high standards of service in our city. As to Tidelands, the reorganization of our police department, which occurred as we began this budget year to save over $1 million per year in city expense, but while actually increasing the amount of total daily patrol officers assigned to our streets. Excellent job, Chief. As to the Tidelands master planning, the achievements include formation of our first Tidelands long-term master planning tool for our bay and beaches in the city's history, completion of the historic dredging of the Rhine Channel that we heard about earlier today, eliminating one of the city's worst environmental threats to our bay that's existed for over 60 years. We're moving ahead, as you heard on the agenda item tonight, with significant dredging of Lower Bay for the first time in 80 years to improve navigability and water quality. And we've initiated generational planning to counter the increasing effects of sea level rise. Newport's one of the very few coastal communities in our nation to begin meaningfully addressing this issue. As to neighborhood revitalization, we've formulated specific plans to include lagging areas in our city, 5 lagging areas, including the master planning of Lido Marina Village, where we are now, revisioning of Balboa Village, improved landscaping for West Coast Highway and Balboa Boulevard, improved landscaping for Bristol South and Santa Ana Heights, and the redesign of the entry to Corona Del Mar at MacArthur and Coast Highways. I'm particularly proud that these have been citizen-led efforts through the formation of 5 separate citizen advisory committees that have held more than 30 public meetings this year in pursuit of their work. Council will soon be asked to approve a series of those specific plans and actions that will move all of these agendas forward. And lastly, pension reform. This is the #1 long-term threat to the fiscal health of our city. Substantial progress has been and will be made to address it. We've already signed breakthrough agreements with our non-public safety unions and our lifeguards that provide for contribution of the maximum employee share of costs and establishment of second tiers for new hires at significantly lower benefit levels. Regarding our other public safety unions, we're currently in negotiations, and I'm optimistic that we will make progress with those as well. Altogether, these changes will provide a generational benefit in reducing the city's retirement expense structure and assuring a sustainable long-term benefit structure for the benefit of our hardworking employees. So that's a quick summary of where we are on generational planning. By no means are we done, but I believe we succeeded in laying a solid foundation for the future. In closing, I must express my most sincere thanks to those whose help and support have been so important to me over the past year. The accomplishments noted above have not been mine. Rather, they are the collective accomplishments of a lot of people working together as a team. Foremost, to my wife, Lynn, and my family, one of whom I hear in the background sounding off right now. That would be Reagan. This past year has been very demanding on many levels, both public and private, and I am so fortunate and appreciated to have the love and support of my family at this time. Your love completes me. Next, to my fellow council members who have supported our planning initiatives in unwavering fashion and have so effectively dealt with so many other important issues during the past year, thanks for your guidance and support. I think we make a great team. And then to our city staff, led by Dave Kiff, I count you among the most dedicated and effective organizations I have ever worked with. You make it all happen. You make it all happen in our city every day, and I'm deeply appreciative. Last but certainly not least, thanks to those citizens who volunteer to serve on the many boards and commissions and committees. We've had more examples of that tonight. I'm regularly amazed at the depth and quality of your work. You are a key part of what makes this city great. In fact, not just great, but rather the shining city by the bay. With that, Nancy, thank you so much for your comments. I wish you complete success as our mayor. I have no doubt you will be a great mayor. You will stand in no one's shadow. And I look forward to contributing in every way I can to your success and to the betterment of our city over the next year.
Thank you. You know, it's not about the gavel. It's about the parking. The mayor gets the best parking space. I read a comment by Oliver Cromwell. You don't have to be a roundhead to appreciate it. He who stops being better stops being good. And I think you can apply this to a city as well. And you've seen, as Mike was just telling, how hard we have worked to continue to be better. And hopefully we'll continue this through this year, and we will that way continue to be good. And that is our goal. And are there any other comments?
I have one. Yeah, I'd like to thank Mike Henn for his leadership over the past year on the City Council. When you came up with your agenda of all these things you wanted to do, I thought, my God, how are we going to even get started on all that? And yet, we've made such substantial progress on all the items you brought up at the beginning of the year. And I just want to thank you for your leadership and laying the groundwork for, I think, greater things to come.
Mr. Curry?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank my colleagues for your confidence in selecting me as Mayor Pro Tem. And Nancy, I'd like to congratulate you for your term as mayor. I know you're going to provide outstanding leadership to the city. And Mike, I just want to thank you and congratulate you for a truly outstanding year. I've said often that because of all the work you do behind the scenes, I don't think the community really has an opportunity all the time to appreciate the things you do. But particularly with how you've reorganized the committees and how you refocused the city's efforts on revitalizing our neighborhoods. Neighborhoods will change. Property values will be impacted. The quality of life will be different for generations because of the leadership that you brought to bear on these issues this year. And it will affect this city for years and years ahead. And we all owe you a debt of gratitude for the dedication and for the skill that you brought that leadership to the city.
Any? Leslie?
Yeah, nice job, Mike. Thank you.
That it? All right. Then we are adjourned to closed session, and then we will reconvene briefly in open session. And then we will all go over to the Back Bay Bistro because the Commodores are putting on a party. So let those of you who are leaving now, let them know we're coming eventually. Adjourned.